And I do have a slightly different take because I don't come from the labor movement or from the education sector. I come as an economist. So I'm going to talk a little bit about numbers. But before I get to the numbers, I want to mention that, like all of you here tonight, I'm here because I know we can do better. And I know that we can find a way to provide a great learning environment for all of our kids, and including those who need additional supports and who are currently not being served very well by the system. And we can fairly compensate teachers for the important work that they do. After all, we don't need to remind ourselves how beautiful this place is, but we probably need to remind ourselves every so often that it is one of the richest provinces of one of the richest countries in the world. So if we can't provide good quality education for all our kids, I don't know who can. So in the next couple of minutes, I'd like to talk a little bit more about affordability. And what does affordability mean exactly? Now, the Minister of Education has repeatedly argued in the media that the teachers' demands are unaffordable and unrealistic. And those are the words he uses. It doesn't matter how many newspaper articles or radio stories you listen to, those same words appear. So why does he say so? Because other unions have accepted lower wage increases than what teachers are asking for. So that's the main talking point. But that's not what affordability means. Affordability is not defined by the wage increases that other public sector unions have agreed to. Affordability is defined by our ability to pay. And as a province, our ability to pay for education and for other services that we want to provide together depends on two things. One is the size of our economy, and one is our tax rates. So I'll talk about both in turn. First, the economy. 5 years after the recession, the BC economy is doing okay. We're not booming, and I'm sure you all know that, but our economy is still projected to grow. And I looked at, okay, the teachers are bargaining for a 5-year term, so I looked in the budget and I said, how much does the government forecast that the economy will grow over the 5 years of the collective agreement? And the economy is projected to grow by 19%, okay? And that's not adjusted for inflation, but neither are the teachers' wage demands. So that's not a small number. Now, provincial government revenues have been undermined by tax cuts, but they're also growing in line with the economy, and they are projected to increase from the government budget by 15% over that 5-year term of the agreement. So even if we accept the government's costing of the teachers' demands as 14.5% increase, which a lot of people are disputing, but even if you accept that, this is actually in line with projected revenue increases over the next 5 years. So this seems to me both realistic and affordable when you look at the budget. Yes, it is higher than what other unions have agreed to, but it's in line with the actual growth of our economy and with the growth of the current government budget. It simply ensures that teachers share in the benefits of prosperity. So besides, considering that teachers have taken 2 years of zero increases, you can think of that 14.5% as an amount spread over 7 years and not 5 years. And then it becomes even more affordable and more realistic. So comparisons to other unions' negotiated increases are not how we assess affordability. For whatever reason, these unions have agreed on wage increases lower than inflation, and I want to highlight that because 5.5% over 5 years is actually lower than inflation. And that means they're taking actual wage cuts. This is happening at a time when we expect to see real per capita GDP growth. Real per capita GDP growth, and they're taking less than inflation wage increases. So that means that the public sector workers who have agreed on these increases, affordable increases, will not be sharing in the benefits of growth over the next 5 years. And that's a problem. Now, the real contentious issues in this round of bargaining, however, as Teri mentioned, is not the wages, it's the provisions around class size and composition. And it's because legislation introduced in 2002, which has since been found illegal by the BC Supreme Court twice, has resulted in higher class sizes, fewer specialist instructors and specialty programs, and fewer supports for kids with disabilities. That has, however, kept the lid on the costs of the education system in BC, and costs have increased slower than they have increased in the rest of the country. But is it worth it? I argue it's not, because it has also undermined the quality of education we're able to provide. Now, BC teachers are asking for smaller classes and for more supports. You are asking for smaller classes and more supports for kids. Does this cost money? You bet it costs money. But this is money that we as a society should be happy to spend because it represents investment in our children. And any economist, including all the right-wing ones, will tell you that education is one of the best investments you can make as a society. And the earlier you make it, the better off you are. It is fundamental in today's rapidly changing knowledge-based economy. It's also key to promoting equality of opportunity and social mobility. And it's becoming ever more important as we see growing income inequality. So providing great education for all kids is the most reliable and sustainable way to build a better future for everyone, regardless of their parents' means or their parents' background. So the Minister of Education argues we can't afford to do that. We can't afford to provide high-quality education for all kids. He says all existing government revenues have been committed to other important projects and services, including those 15% growth. It's all being committed. But the thing to keep in mind is, as Irene mentioned, government can choose how much revenues they have available to spend, and they choose it by setting tax rates. Saying there's no money for education improvements doesn't mean we can't afford it. It just means we can't pay for them with our current tax rates. But we can choose to increase taxes. Now, federal and provincial taxes have declined considerably over the last 10 years. Irene already mentioned some of it, but the BC government likes to brag about having the lowest income tax rates in the country. But what good is having the lowest personal income tax rate if you also have the highest poverty rate and the highest child poverty rate? And if you're cutting arts and sports programs in schools? And if you can't provide kids with learning challenges, the kinds of supports they need? What good is it? If we collected taxes at the same share of the economy now as we did in 2001, we would have $2.5 billion more to spend on needed public services. That would more than pay for the class size and composition improvements you're asking for. Now, there is room, as you see, to increase taxes modestly. We have the lowest tax rates. If we had the average tax rates, we calculated last year in the report I co-published with our director, Sad Klein, at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, if we had the average tax rates of the other provinces, we'll still have more than $1 billion every year. So, you know, maybe we don't need to have the lowest. It can be done. For example, last year, the provincial government chose to create a new temporary tax bracket for people earning over $150,000 a year to help reduce the deficit faster. So they have shown that it is possible to change tax rates if you have something you want to pay for. Now, this new tax bracket was introduced for only 2 years, so it expires December 2015, and it raises around $205 million a year. So if we made this tax bracket permanent, instead of having it expire in December 2015, that would almost cover all the costs of improved class sizes and compositions that teachers are asking for. And if we introduced a new tax bracket at income over $200,000 on top of that, this would generate another $250 million a year that you could use to improve, you know, education or for whatever else. Now, as a few economic professor, Krishna Pendekar, who's one of my professors because I did my undergrad degree there, he had an op-ed recently in the province. I don't know if any of you saw it. It was a great piece, and he offered another option. He mentioned, you know, if you increase taxes by just 3% overall, that would raise $1 billion a year. And for most people, this would amount to between $100 and $500 a year. It's only those at the top 1% that will be paying more. So the report we published last year called Tax Options for BC, Progressive Tax Options for BC, outlines a number of other possibilities because there's many different ways you can generate revenues. There are ways if the will is there. And just yesterday, if you read the newspaper, you probably saw that the BC government ended the fiscal year with a larger than anticipated surplus. That's another 200 million, one time, once. But that's almost enough to cover the cost for the one-time grievance fund that teachers are asking for. To sum it all up, because I only have 30 seconds to go, investing in excellent education for all our kids is not only realistic and affordable, I think it's fundamental for building the kind of just and sustainable society that we all want to live in. Thank you.